This weekend should bring flooding rain throughout the East Coast. If we were to take a look at the latest depiction of the GFS model, we do see that there's a small low pressure system lingering over the Northeast, bringing a moderate around a moderate amount of rain showers around the area. Now, this will contribute to overall rainfall accumulation that could exceed 5 inches right up along the Northeast coast, which is concerning when it comes to flooding. And we have another trough that's bringing severe weather to Texas right now that's expected to develop more rain showers that are more consolidated and over a larger area. So the threat of flooding rain should increase as the storm continues ahead further eastward. Moving forward with what the computer model, the GFS model, is stating, we do see that by the Saturday morning time frame, we're going to see another envelope of moisture develop right over the Gulf of Mexico. There is a decent amount of cold air and instability that exists right up along the Gulf Coast for this envelope of moisture to develop, and this could bring flash flooding. As I'll say, associated with this area of rain showers, there should be a moderate risk of flash flooding because we do see the darker reds, darker oranges. So by Saturday morning into Saturday afternoon along the Gulf Coast, which includes the Florida Panhandle, the southern areas of Alabama and Georgia. This is where you should expect a high risk of flash flooding because a small squall line is expected to develop. I won't necessarily say it'll be categorized as severe, but it certainly will bring heavy rain over a short period of time. So the flash flooding risk does exist for Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon for those areas. So watch out if you're along the Gulf Coast. And we see that this low pressure system continues to develop, and it will coincide with this trough that's a little bit further northward right over the Great Lakes. That's bringing plenty of cold air behind it. So the temperature is going to be so cold to a point where there's going to be snow on the backside of this low pressure system, which is definitely not something we see very often this late into the spring season, where now we're almost approaching May at this point, but the temperatures will be quite cold, and that will allow a large area of instability and convection to develop right up along the East Coast. And this will mean that the area of rain will be very large, elongated because of all the convection that's going on associated with this instability. And not only that, we will see the winds become gustier with this trough. And this is one of those later season nor'easters that we're going to see develop this weekend into early next week, which is something we don't see often during the month of April because that's when the air temperature begins to stabilize and the polar jet stream begins to relegate itself further northward. But in this scenario, we see that there's going to be heavy snow in the northern portion of the Great Lakes, where the millibar pressure will drop down to 993 millibars, and soon we're going to only see this low pressure system jump towards the northeast and strengthen even more, where we do see a very large area of rain, and this rain could be heavy at times right over the northeast, where again you should expect anywhere from 3 to 5 inches of rain. Don't rule out the possibility of flash flooding as well, because that instability will develop some thunderstorms associated with this trough. And of course, you need to worry about the cooler than average temperatures just to the west of this low pressure system, as it's going to be a very cold weekend for many Americans, where I'll say the temperature will likely hover around 20 degrees below average in a large portion of the Great Lakes, including areas of the northeast as well once this trough moves to the northeast. So make sure to watch out for that. I will say that the worst of the rain for New York City, Washington D.C., Boston, that should occur I'll say at the Sunday afternoon to Sunday night time frame and approaching early Monday as well. And we see the millibar pressure just continues to drop as it encounters more and more instability, and we see a negative tilt with the jet stream, which shows that there's likely going to be plenty of convection as well as strong winds associated with this trough, thanks to how low the pressure is along the surface. So make sure to pay very close attention to that throughout the northeast for the possibility of flooding rain throughout New England, because it is likely at this point. The European model is also showing a very similar forecast, as the European model expects a ridge that's built over the western Atlantic to steer this storm further northward and encounter an area where the temperature is a lot colder, and that's going to create a negative tilt with this ridging blocking this low pressure system from taking the storm further eastward, and it'll trap the cold air for a large area of instability to develop. So make sure to keep that in mind, that we're going to see very heavy rain and gusty winds all throughout the northeast from this storm, and the European model is showing a very similar scenario. However, moving beyond the Monday timeframe, we see that this low pressure system continues to linger and continues to strengthen because, like I said, this is expected to develop, the jet stream is expected to position itself to where it's going to form a negative tilt, which means that we're going to see the jet stream winds temporarily move from east to west, which is opposite of what the jet stream typically does, which brings winds from west to east. So we're going to see the storm move closer inland and just make this storm meander over a prolonged period. So you should experience a very prolonged period of heavier rain showers and snow showers in the north, and that should create just very ugly conditions as we approach the month of May for many Americans right up along the Great Lakes region. So make sure to keep that in mind, as this is going to linger for quite some time, even going into the Tuesday timeframe. Low pressure system is still right over Michigan at this point, and then we do see that this storm continues to just linger throughout Wednesday and then into Thursday as well, and it's not until Friday, I'll say, the low pressure system is completely out of the United States, as the negative tilt will eventually weaken, and then this negative tilt will sort of force this low pressure system to become more of an upper level low, as it'll separate itself from the jet stream. And with upper level lows, the key thing about them is that they move very slowly because there isn't a strong steering current associated with the jet stream, and that's exactly what we're seeing right here, where this storm is just gonna be on its own island with weak steering flow. So it's gonna just bring ugly conditions over next week for much of the Northeast and the Great Lakes. So keep that in for the next 5 days, and we do see that a large area of Northeast should expect anywhere from 3 to 5 inches of rain. This includes New York City, Washington D.C., Boston. So in the flood prone areas, you should expect flooding, and then even moving southward into the southeast, you should expect anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain, especially up along the coast. So make sure to pay close attention to that the risk of flooding is higher, especially in the northeast associated with this nor'easter. So make sure to be aware of that scenario. Taking a look at the wind forecast from the GFS model, we do see that this won't necessarily be a huge wind maker, but we certainly will see those winds increase, especially right up along the Great Plains, where we do see that the winds should be anywhere from 20 to 30 knots. So we could see wind gusts up to 40 to 50 miles per hour in some of these areas in the Midwest, and including the Northeast coast as well. We do see the winds become quite strong, especially towards the New England coast, where you could expect sustained winds close to 30 miles per hour, 30 to 40 miles per hour, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw gusts up to 60 miles per hour right up along the coast. In the bigger cities like New York City, Boston, Philadelphia, you should expect wind gusts maybe around 30 to 40 miles per hour. Not necessarily very strong, but still strong enough to where you want to at least be aware of it. Bring those loose things inside. You don't want those to be flying projectiles towards your home and damage your property. And then taking a look at the when this storm is at the Great Lakes, we do see the winds will be quite sustained as well and strong over this very large area. So make sure to be aware of that scenario as well, that this will be a pretty big wind maker as well.
Okay, when you do that, you can put it.
So here's the flash flooding risk for today throughout Texas and Oklahoma, and you see that in Virginia, into Pennsylvania, New Jersey, as well as portions of the southeast is where you should expect a marginal risk of heavy rainfall and flash flooding. So make sure to be aware of that. And we do see that for tomorrow, the risk increases for the southeast, where we do see a slight risk of flash flooding in these areas, but it should more lean towards a moderate risk. So make sure to be aware of that possibility in the Florida Panhandle, Georgia, Alabama, that there should be mainly a moderate risk of flash flooding thanks to the heavy rainfall. And make sure you have a plan in case there's a flash flood threat in your area. And here's the GFS model snowfall forecast, because of course this is another threat associated with this storm as it approaches the northeast. And we do see that much of the Great Lakes could experience over a foot of snow. This will be over a prolonged period. So you should expect mainly, I'll say 8 to 12 inches in northern Michigan as well as Wisconsin, and then the extreme northern portions of the mainland of Michigan. That's where you should expect 3 to 5 inches of snow for the most part, and potentially some snow in the higher elevations of Pennsylvania and upstate New York. Here's my overall forecast when it comes to this northeast snowstorm. We do see that right up along the northeast coast, there's very heavy rainfall, and I'm expecting very heavy rainfall, the potential flooding, so be aware of that possibility. And temperatures should be close to 20 degrees below average in the northern Great Lakes region. So make sure to bundle up, even as we approach May. The temperatures will still be much colder than average. But thank you guys for watching.